Gamers all around the flat universe. Today we'll be redoing every StarCraft 2 unit tier list. So this is my tier list from 2019. So someone suggested I do this and I was like, eh. And then I was like, let me check my old video. So I checked my old video. Look at the units that are in D tier. This is the meta change and some balance changes. Disruptor, Void Ray, Carrier are D tier. That's how unusable and how little usage they got in StarCraft 2 in 2019. Now we're almost 2022, and S units were Zealot, High Templar, Archon, Immortal, War Prism, Queen, Infester, Broodlord, Marine, and Liberator. So we're gonna go back and revisit and see what we come up with this time. Yeah, Broodlord Infester was S. Let's just say it's not S now, right? So, yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to do this list. I'm going to try to... So what is the basis start of this tier list? Well, I'm going to use it not maybe in my personal experience, but just at the top level down to my level. Obviously, I'm not going to say like, oh my god, you know, SCVs are OP in Bronze League for Rushes, and I'm not going to put them S tier, right? I'm going to put them GM level to pro gaming kind of level. So, yeah. All right, let's get started. I'll start with some obvious ones. Disruptor is definitely an S tier unit. There's no question about it. Disruptors are insane. So many... Well, all three matchups depend on disruptors. Some matchups, they're very hard to deal with, and the better the Protoss is, the more obnoxious they are. So they went from D to S tier in just 2 years. Now, Void Rays are really good, but are they S tier? Because they're only really used in... oh wait, they're used in TVZ for Void Ray rushing. And they're used in ZVP. PvP they're not used too much, but I would still give them like an S tier. I think they're just insane unit right now. They're extremely used in the 2 matchups, not in the 3rd one, but I guess it's the same thing with Disruptor. Disruptor is not really used that much in PvP because of the Phoenix. Was Disruptor D before because the High Templar was way better? Disruptor worked differently in 2019, I'm pretty sure. I think that was before they made the change that the Nova goes through units, before it would like hit the first unit. And I think that was before 2019. But also, the meta was just different. The builds that were used were different, and you didn't really have time to get the disruptors out efficiently. Now you can. What else do we got? Let's see, what is an easy S tier? I mean, I would say Marines are still S tier. Like, I don't think anything changed there. Marines are they're just good unit. They haven't received any changes. If you micro them well, they're S tier, you know? It's just kind of how it is. Carriers, I will say with the recent changes to High Templars getting another bonus range on feedback makes carriers a lot better versus Vipers and Infestors. We've seen a lot of carrier usage in TVP and PvP. Once you reach late game, I mean, carriers are a really good unit to have. What else do we got? Let's do the workers. Where are the workers at? Drone. We got a drone. We got SCV, and we got a probe. I would say I'm not gonna put probe as, you know, OP. But probe is definitely the best and sneakiest worker, and I'm gonna just put SCV as B, and I'm gonna put drone as C. Drone it's pretty hard to harass with the drone. You don't want to harass with the drone. It gets destroyed when you make a building, so it's you know, SCV has more health than the drone. You can harass, you can poke with it, you can do some rushes. But the probe is definitely the more annoying one, and maybe we can even go like this. Works the same way. What else do we got? Queens. I mean, queens are just S tier, straight up. I don't know what I rated them in the other video, but queens are just insane. Defensively, still, I believe that out of the 3 races, the queens are the best defensive unit. They are probably the most important unit from the Zerg arsenal. If you don't have good queen usage, you ain't gonna do too well in at high level. Queen's got -1 range though. Queen's got -1 range, but queens found more use because the meta is Sky Toss and the meta is changed a little bit. There's a lot of queen rushes with Roach Ravager, with Ling Roach Queen, and I feel that even with the -1 range, yeah, a lot of units got -1 range. That's a good point. Queens just got a lot more usage. Players got even better with queens. Yeah, I think queen is just a great unit overall. Mutas fell off quite a bit, I gotta say. Mutas fell off really badly. Mutas are not used in any matchups actively. I'm not gonna put him at D because there is some tech switches you can do, but I don't know what I rated him last time, but God, dude, Mutas fell off. ZVT used to be all about Mutas. ZVZ, there was a lot of Muta openings, and there is sometimes people do it, but not really. Another unit that went up way higher, I think I rated Lurker pretty low last time. Lurker is a staple unit in all 3 matchups these days. You don't have to make them in ZVP. ZVZ Lurkers are a thing. ZVT Lurkers became the meta quite a bit, and I think they're just a great unit. They did get a buff. They got the was it a faster burrow or the range buff that they got? I can't remember. Yeah, Muta is too expensive. Why do you think the Mutas fell off so hard? Well, ZVP 80%, 90% of the games, or maybe 70-80% of the games is Protoss going Sky Toss, so you can't really go Muta into double Stargate. You're just gonna lose. In ZVT, it is extremely hard to defend the first Terran push with opening Mutas, but then if you do Mutas later, they have double factory, so they can just go Thor Widowmine. So if the Terran meta was more siege tank based, then you could go Muta, but the Terran meta is Widowmines into another factory, and then you can just do Thors. And then ZVZ, I mean, ZVZ Mutas were always a thing, but not really, so yeah. They got -1 range, but they got +2 upgrade. Big brain Blizzard. Big brain right there. Banshees. Well, actually, no, I'm going to put Mutas here. Banshees, I'm going to put in C. They're, you know, I would say Banshees show up way more than Mutas and are more used in more valuable ways as like a safe opener, or we've even seen like Cyclone Banshee in TVT sometimes, but they're just not a great unit. For the same reason like Mutas, they just don't fit in the meta. The meta in TVT is like Raven openers. The meta in ZVT is a lot of queens and you make safe spores into fast layer. And then meta in ZVT, in PVT is Blink Stalkers with obs. So all 3 matchups, there are just counters to the Banshee. Like blind counters. So every time you make a Banshee, there's already a counter to it. So you're not really progressing in any way. Reapers, I'm gonna go with D. I think Reapers just fell off very, very badly. 3-Rex Reaper, you still see it sometimes in TVT, but very, very rarely. They're not even used as a scout anymore. The only reason they're made in TVT is so that you can defend early game Reapers, and you don't really rely on them for scouting. TVP has completely abandoned Reapers at a high level. They just open Marine into Reactor. Yeah, they're very map dependent, which actually makes them worse. And then Reapers versus Zerg, you only really make 1, and you know, you can get the same scouting win on SCV, so the only reason why people make Reaper in ZVT is because going like Reactor first doesn't really help you with anything. Alright, we got an Oracle. I think Oracle is probably A or B. I don't think it's OP, and it doesn't really have the same impact as it used to have. It's not really a worker killer. It's more like a cheesy proxy Stargate to try to suppress your opponent. Or it's a unit you kind of make to control your opponent and get the scouting. So it's either B or A. I'll see how the thing progresses. It's not as common anymore, but I do think it is still pretty important. Widowmines are definitely high up there. I think they're extremely important. Maybe not S tier, maybe A tier. They are used a lot in ZVT and they are used in TVP, but the problem is they're not really used in TVT at all. I do think they're a very impactful unit and can change the game very quickly. So yeah. What else? I'm trying to see like a unit that kind of sticks to one of these, so I can make my decision based off of that. Let's do Raven. I think Raven is... this is a hard one. I do feel that Oracle is more used than the Raven, but Raven is quite important in TVT. And TVP, people go Raven, so I'm going to put it with the Oracle. I think it's just a situational unit. It's not really... You don't make them because they're good, you just make them because they... How do I say this without sounding stupid? You just made them because you have to make them. You don't necessarily make them like, oh dude, I'm going to get Ravens and I want to do a push. You know what I mean? Like, you make them for detection to be safe, but they don't really provide a lot. They're good against Colossus, yeah, they're good against disabling tanks, but most of the time they just kind of die, and then they get kind of like resurgence in the late game. But I do think they're better than their benches at least. Medevacs are 100% S tier. Like, it's just a really good unit. The better the player, the more value you get out of Medevacs. So yeah, 10 out of 10 would Medevac again. I'm looking at the Marauders. Are Marauders as good as these other units that I'm looking at here? They're pretty good, but I don't think they're S tier. I think they're A tier though. Marauders are really strong, but you can't really make them all the time. They're not an all-purpose kind of unit. So we're gonna put them there for now. The Zealots definitely got nerfed, as you guys know. So we're gonna put them in A tier. The Zealots in 2019, the last time I did this video, had the charge. And they were just a lot better, to be honest. They were just doing way more damage. Now they're like faster, but yeah, they kind of fell off a bit. Like Zealot-based game, gameplays and strategies are not really a thing. We don't see 2-base Zealot all-ins anymore and stuff, which is great, but it's just kind of how it is. Roaches, I'm gonna put Roaches as A tier. It's a pretty staple unit. It's not OP or anything, but it's a very good unit. There was a time where people were saying Roaches are awful. They are supply inefficient, but early, in the past 2 years, you guys probably saw if you watch pro streams or tournament streams, there's a lot of Roach Queen pushes. A lot of them. So they're just a good unit. Ravager is an easy S tier. I think Ravager, out of all these units, I feel like Ravager is used so well these days, and people discovered how to use it way better. The Zergs are using rapid fire as well with it. They're sniping Liberators, sniping tanks. I mean, Zergs are, like, if Terran's going Liberators, Zergs don't get Hydras or Corruptors. They just kill them with Ravagers. So, yeah, I think they're really good. Sentries, I'm just gonna put them here. Like, they're a very good unit. They do have a lot of importance in the game, but they kind of fell off a tiny bit. Not too much. They're just a unit that you make depending on what unit comp you go for. Like, if you go Zealot Archon, you don't really go Sentries, but if you're going like Stalker Colossus, you do. Same thing versus Terran. It all depends what you're going for. So they're kind of situational like the other ones. I feel like. I don't know why Overlords are here. I will say I do feel like the Overlord placements in the last 2 years got worse for Zergs, and I do feel like it's maybe a bit harder to scout for the Zergs recently. But I can't really compare them to fighting units. So I'll just put it here. Fudge it. Now we got Observer and Overseer. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna put them like this. I think Observer is worse than Overseer. Observers are slower until you get an upgrade for them, and I know there's an upgrade for Overseer. But Overseers don't, they're very easy to make, and Overseers don't cost supply. So you can have as many of them as you want, and Overseers with speed provide you for super easy scouting. You can get them relatively quickly no matter what unit comp you're going for. So I do think they're pretty decent. Next unit, Adepts. Adepts, I'm gonna go with A. Adepts were broken as hell in early Legacy. I don't know when you guys started playing, but Adepts in early Legacy were broken, dude. Oh my god, they were broken. Then they got nerfed, then they got buffed, and they were broken again. And then they got nerfed? They were still good, people learned how to deal with them, and over time they fell off really hard. Like, remember the Phoenix Adept? That shit was everywhere against Terran. But it kind of fell off. And then recently, it's coming back into popularity. I wouldn't call them S tier, but they've been used quite a bit. They're used in PvP. They're used in PvT pretty much every game, unless you go Blink Stalker straight from the get-go. They're very good scouters, way better than Reapers, I think. And in PvZ, there's been a lot of resurgence of Glaive Adepts once again. So I think they're a pretty good unit. What else do we got? Swarm Hosts. Swarm Hosts fell off quite a bit. I'm gonna just go with this. There is usage for them, but again, you know, the meta has shifted. Like ZVZ, what are you gonna use them against? ZVT, mech is completely like almost dead, and you don't use Swarm Hosts against Bio. The only time you would use Swarm Hosts is against Protoss, but most Protoss builds these days are Sky Toss. So realistically, what are you gonna use them? I would even put them here actually. I think Swarm Hosts are just outdated as hell. I think they're a cool unit, but they just have no usage. Mutas D, what the hell? Just tuned in. Tell me the last time you've seen a Muta in a pro game. Another Zerg unit in D? Yeah. Banelings are S tier, for sure. Banelings, I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if they're cost effective because Baneling is 50-25 for half the supply, right? Yeah, they are. They're 50-25 for half the supply. So 2 Banelings are 100 minerals, 50 gas, but they're 2 units. I don't know what the proper most resource/supply ratio. Sure, whatever. They're still good. Run buys in all 3 matchups. They're staple in all 3 matchups. They got a nerf at a point, didn't they? I remember it was a big deal against Protoss, but they're still used in every matchup, so they're still pretty good. Yeah, they got the health nerf. Didn't do too much, but Zerglings, I think Zerglings are A tier. They're super good, and one of the scariest units actually in the hands of good Zerg. No joke. Like, Zergling run-bys are so hard to deal with if the Zerg is extremely active. But Zerglings are not the type of unit that are just going to win you the game, you know? They're not going to just show up and you're like, oh wow, I guess you lose. Unless it's a 12 pull and you're unprepared, but, you know, it's kind of your fault, isn't it? Vipers. Vipers dropped off. I don't think they're B tier. God forbid, like, Vipers are not Ravens, guys, let's be honest. Like, they're not that trash. But they're not S tier because the biggest nerf to Vipers actually was the High Templar buff, which makes it so that you can feed back before Viper does anything. So Vipers are still very good, still very used, just not that good, you know. What else do we got? Blink stalkers. Blink stalkers are really good. Blink stalkers, I'm gonna definitely put S tier. Blink stalkers were extremely used in TVT and TVP 2 years ago. The only difference is now they're still used. They're actually even more used, especially in TVP. But they're also starting to see a lot of usage in PvZ with Blink Stalker Colossus pushes with some sentries. So they're just a good unit. Like, I mean, listen, Blink in any game is just broken. Like, if you play any game, whether it's a MOBA shooter, Blink is just extremely good ability. Alright, what else do we got? I'm looking at these units, and again, I'm trying to connect some of them. Archon. Where would I put Archons? Archons were S tier last time, but a lot of the Archon builds has completely gone. Like, remember the DT drop into 2 Archon harassment? That doesn't exist anymore. PvZ was all about Archons. Not so much anymore. TVP, Ghost got buffed, and TVP is actually not focusing on a lot of Archons. If you guys watch pro games, actually, I just answered my own question. If you watched pro games recently, Gas from Protoss is not really used with Archons in the main army. Instead, they do mass DT warpins and just go with Blink DTs sniping bases. And that's because every Terran army has ghosts, and the EMP radius got increased. So, Winter often says stalkers are trash if you're not pro. I mean, that's true for a lot of units. But again, this is not a tier list for Gold League. It's a tier list for like GM and like pro level, in my opinion, obviously. Ultras. I mean, ultras are still used in TVZ, but they're not used at all in TVP, and I can't really put them higher, to be honest. Oh, this is a hard one, actually. Oof, I feel like ultras should be like between these 2 ranks. The whole worker thing annoys me because they're just workers. Who cares? This is a hard one. I don't know if, like, ultras are good, but they don't have a lot of usage. And I don't think they're as bad as, like, they're used more than the Oracle and the Raven, for sure. Ultras are common in ZVP. I don't know what they do in Plastic League over there, but I can tell you ultras are not common in ZVP. Yeah, ultras are used against high Templars in the late game. Funnily enough, a lot of people don't know, but when there's a Skytoss army with carriers, people see ultras and they're like, why is this Zerg making ultras? The only way to kill high Templars as a Zerg is make 3 ultras and cleave down the high Templars. But they're not used in ZVZ and ZVT. They're also not used every game because lurkers have taken over in the late game quite a bit. I'm just gonna put them here. They're like in between these 2 ranks, honestly. They're better than B, but they're worse than A, in my opinion. Someone's gonna be like, but ultras beat Zerglings. Yes, that is correct. They do beat them. DT. I'm gonna put DT into A tier. I think DT, Blink DT especially, has gotten a lot of usage recently. Blink DT initially when it got out, because DT Blink upgrade was added, no one used it. Like, no one. But over time, I feel like the moment Protoss gets Dark Trend these days, they insta queue up Blink. Obviously, unless it's like a DT opener, but in the mid to late game, they insta pop them. Yeah, they buffed Blink time as well, right? So I think DTs are pretty good unit. Mothership, the -400. They're not as, it's not as bad as Mutas and Swarm Hosts, but it's not great. It's it takes too long to build. It has its issues. All right, it has its issues. War Prism. I mean, Prism... I'm just gonna put it at S tier. Prism did lose some playability because you can't do the Archon drop harassment anymore. But it still has potential to kill the Zerg, to kill the Terran if you warp units at the right time. It's extremely important. You can juggle colossus, disruptors, immortals. It's used in proxy robo all-ins. I think it's just a great unit. Immortals. Immortals definitely dropped off to A. They're extremely strong unit. Extremely strong. Just that the meta has kind of went away from them quite a bit. Because Zealot, if you see, there's a common thing here. Zealot, Archon, Immortal. Those were S last time I made this list. Now they dropped to A because the meta is different. The meta changed. So it's not that necessarily the unit got worse. It's that people maybe got good against that, or the meta just changed. Why can't you use the Archon drop anymore? You can use it, but the War Prism pickup range got nerfed. So it's a lot harder to harass with Archons and get away safely at high level. What else do we got? What else do we got? Infester is another unit that I feel like is right there with Ultras. It's gaining popularity. Microbial Shroud is finally used over the past couple of months. It's used by top players more and more, but that's because there's an increase of Sky Toss. So I do think that Vipers are better than Infestors, but I also think Infestors are better than Oracle and Ravens. So let me just make this easier. Let me just put this workers here. Like, again, who cares? It's workers. No one cares. I'm gonna have to move these units a little bit. How do I add a tier? Okay, there we go. Wait, did that just change the name? The fuck? Add a row above. Alright, so F tier. We'll just put the workers in there. Okay, I like that better. That is a better representation of what I was trying to convey over here. Alright. Overseer may be also here. I don't know. Probably is. But I do think that Overseers are better than Observers. At a high level. At a noob level, like Observers is their whole game, you know what I mean? But at high level, Observers get snapped like this. And you also don't have a lot of robo production time to waste on Observers. So workers are used in every matchup. I know, but it's silly to have worker like... because if you compare worker to worker, you can split them in different ones. But then if you put a probe here, that doesn't mean... like, that would mean that probe is better than observer. It's not, right? So I'll just put the workers here. Fudge it. Alright, what else do we got? We got Thors. I think Thors are B tier. I think that, like, just like Ultras, they have their own use. I think they did get a buff, right? But, you know, I'm not gonna say Ultra is, or Thor is as good as Marauder or Immortal. You know, that'd be an insult to them. But I do think that, you know, they are buffed. They are quite chunky though, and they have their own weaknesses. So, yeah, they went from a complete meme to you know, they're usable. Battle cruiser operational. Battle cruisers. I think battle. I'm kind of stuck between A and S. I think battle cruisers are extremely good. But they're just so expensive and they're so hard to get. But I guess the same is true with carriers. I just think battlecruisers are really, really good, and you can use them in very cool ways to go around the map and snap bases, and I think the players got much better with them. The problem is getting to them. I'm actually gonna put them lower. You very rarely see BCs, and they're just hard to get to without dying, to be honest. And BCs are very all in. Like, it feels like you have one shot with them. if you have 5 BCs, that doesn't really do anything. You know, you gotta have 20 to make a difference. But yeah, their late game potential is huge. It is huge. Like I said, they're S quality in terms of how good they are, but being good and being able to make them is two different things. And if you can't make them, are they really good? What an ADA X tier above S? No, that's good. What else do we got? Ghosts. I mean, Ghosts got a buff. I'm trying to think. Ghosts did get a buff. I don't know how good I would rate them. That's going to be a hard one to rate, actually. I'm going to leave those for now. Liberators fell off a lot, by the way. I don't know what I put last time. I think I might have put S on Liberators. Liberators are not that good anymore. I'm going to put them in B. I know this might be like controversial, but Liberator harassment, Liberator usage in general, I feel fell off quite a lot. I'm trying to think, like, in ZVT, when do you use Liberators? You use them in the late game. You don't do any pushes with them. You don't harass with Liberator early. In TVT, you use them versus mech, and sometimes you use them versus like Viking battles, and then you get a Liberator and stuff. And then in TVP is the most troubling one, which is they dropped off a lot. Like a lot. They used to be a staple in TVP. They were like, you get to range Liberators, you're good to go. The problem these days is why they dropped off. I don't think they're C. I don't think they're that bad. The reason why they dropped off, by the way, the main reason is their range got nerfed by 1. So what happens is now disruptors can get at the edge of the line, shoot the Nova, and the bio cannot protect the Liberator from blink. So basically Protoss can shoot Nova, blink under the Liberator and kill it. And the Terran can't do anything about it. So their value dropped off quite a bit because of that. And people just go siege things these days, to be honest. So, yeah. What else do we have? I'm struggling rating these last units, to be honest. Vikings. I mean, you guys, hey, you guys know what I think about Vikings. Yeah, Vikings are trash. They're paper airplanes, guys. Ah, fuck, this is hard. Vikings are bad. Like, there's no way around it. They're just bad. They're bad against Protoss. Skytoss, that is. They're good against Colossus, obviously, because Colossus can't fight back. When the Vipers get nerfed, well, High Templar got buffed on feedback. That's a nerf to Viper. They're good in TVT, but it's a mirror, so does that really say much? And then in ZVT, they're not really used. Like, if you deal with Broodlords, you kind of go for Ghosts instead, or you just go BCs. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I always hated Vikings, to be honest, so I might be biased on that one. What else do we got? Corruptors. Where do I put Corruptors? I think Corruptors are good, but you know, I think they're definitely better than Vikings. I'll just say that. And they produce the beautiful Broodlords, so you know, there's that too. Broodlords in the current day and age. I would probably put Broodlords also at A tier. Honestly, if this is the tier list, Broodlords got more counters, by the way. That's why they're here. The Thor counters them a lot harder. The Zerg meta with lurkers is kind of predominant these days. And because of the Skytoss, the Broodlord is seeing way less usage. Broodlords beat Thors? Well, Broodlords are better units than Thors. Thors counter Broodlords, but, you know, they're still better. Like, this unit tier list, it doesn't mean that Zergling beats a Medevac, you know? It just means that overall, that unit is better than that unit, in my opinion. What else do we got? Cyclones. Like, they have their usage, but they're used in TVT. Maybe they're even D, to be honest. Like, they're used in TVT early. They're not used in TVP unless you're defending an all-in. Yeah, I would say maybe even a D. Like, Viking is way more used than them. And more playable. Like, there's been some attempts in TVT to go like Cyclone Banshee, like I mentioned earlier, but that doesn't really make them good. They're just so squishy. Like, if they got more health, they would be so much better. But their health is just trash, like complete trash. Okay, what else do we got? Colossus. Colossus is seeing a little bit of a resurgence recently, by the way. But I don't think Colossus is that amazing these days. Maybe I should move Adepts to B, actually. I think Colossus got a lot of play recently. It's still not really used in PvP. Sometimes you see someone try it. PvZ, there are some builds, but you know, then ain't it, chief. That doesn't mean they're like you don't make them. It just means that as a solo unit, maybe I would even move Adepts here actually. But I don't know. Adepts are pretty decent these days. Phoenix. We've seen some Phoenix openers, but nothing big. Like we've seen some Phoenix openers in PvT pop up into Colossus and stuff. But the only time where you can actually maybe even see them is PvP, but PvP has become so all in with stalkers recently as well. I'm not super convinced. I would maybe even put them a bit lower because they're also not using PvZ at all. The funny thing is because of the Sky Toss going up, Phoenix are not used at all. Because yeah, I would maybe even put them here because Sky Toss is so good that you don't. Why would you go Phoenix? You just go Void Rays into carriers. So Phoenix can be used in PvZ. Well, they can, but they're not. You know, that's the difference. They take so much babysitting as well to get value, while Void Rays are much easier to use. So, and also right, Phoenix is for mutas. Like no one's making mutas, right? So that's a good point. High Templars. High Templars are only really used against Zerg. Sometimes against Terran these days. I'm gonna move them there. Maybe even B tier actually. I think the Max says I think the main reason you don't do Phoenix is because he loses to Queen Walks. Well, that's also true, but like the whole meta is just not good for Phoenix, and I think that's what most of these units and most of this tier list is based on, guys. It's not that the unit is bad; it's just that the meta is. Well, some units are just bad, right? Like Banshees, but the meta is just so unfriendly towards that unit. Like I think High Templar is insane, but TVP like every turn goes ghosts, right? PvP, you don't use High Templars, and then PvZ, they are used. They're very, very good. It's the same reason like why Immortal is A tier. It's not a worse unit. It's extremely good, but like these units that are like S tier that are super meta just are very good against Immortals. Max, do you think Adept is A tier or B tier? It might be B tier because it's kind of situational. Yeah, like these units are more staple, I would say. Like I think. Like I said, DT I think is a really, really good unit. I even, like, no joke, I still think DTs are underused. They've been getting so much usage, but I think they're still underused. How good they are. Like, the sniping planetaries with DTs is just so powerful. It's insane. Alright. Hellion and hellbat. Oh, both of these are fucking cringe, guys. Like, I'm gonna go like this. This indicates that the person is going mech. Hellion S tier? I mean, is it though? It's not S tier though. Like, it's used as an opening against Protoss. In ZVT, it's used initially, right? First 6 Hellions. And in TVT, it's used for the first 3 Hellions. But when do you make them after? Like, does that make them an S tier unit? Like, I would put them at A tier because they are used in every matchup. But they're not used in mech though. That's the issue. I do think they're a good unit. Hellbats, I put Hellbats in C tier, maybe even D tier, because Hellbats assumes mech, and no one's playing mech. Like, no one's playing mech. I'm gonna use Hellions in B tier actually. Like, they're just not used. If mech was more popular, I would probably push Hellbats into B and Hellions into A. They're just like, maybe this is even lower. They're a good unit, but mech, it just feels impossible these days at a high level. Like, it's funny how Blizzard has been trying to buff mech for so long, and I felt like it's progressively getting worse. Cyclones are better than Hellbats. Yeah, maybe Hellbats should be here. They're really bad. Like, they're amazing against Lings, but what Zerg is going to make Lings against Hellbats anyway? It's evolving just backwards, yeah. Well, yeah, that's an issue. They buff mech, but then they also buff all the counters to mech, you know? So, yeah. Alright, we got Ghosts, and I know Protoss players are going to say Ghost is S tier, but I would still put Ghost as A tier. It's not used in TVT whatsoever, and I do think it's an incredibly powerful unit, but its only value is really EMPs. So, yeah. Hydra? I'm kind of torn on Hydra. Like, Hydra's a good unit, but is it S tier? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of counters to Hydra. I'd probably put them in A tier. Like, it's a very, very good unit, but maybe even B tier. It's a very good unit, but it just doesn't see a lot of... many players play it, but it's not like, oh my god, he's going Hydras. I think A is fine for them. They're like a staple unit that doesn't have downsides. Now, these two... So I've been trying to pick units that I can kind of decide which one goes where. I don't know where to put Siege Tanks and Tempests. I honestly, I'm like conflicted about Siege Tanks. I think they're used in every matchup, but I just think they're so shit. But they are used in every matchup. And Tempests, they get overshadowed by both Voiders and Carriers. They have their use, but they're kind of like Thors, you know? Like, you don't make Tempest. You make Tempest against something. And even then, sometimes the question is, like, let's say Zerg goes Broodlords. Do you go Tempest or do you just go Carriers and roll them over? I think Tank is A tier. Like, I don't think anyone sees Tanks and they're like, oh, that's it, I lost the game, yes, Tanks. I do think if you compare Siege unit on a level, right? If you compare Widowmines to Tanks to Liberators, I would definitely say that the Widowmines are the best, with highest potential of damage, no matter what level you are. I think Tanks are just solid, right? But they're much easier to engage than Widowmines, because you know kind of what to expect. And Liberators, I think, are the worst out of the three. Because Siege Tanks are basically countering what Liberator's supposed to, but much better. So summary is Protoss OP. I don't know, do you guys think anything should be changed here? I'm looking for any final changes. Do you guys think anything should be changed? Okay, Max, as the highest rated player in this chat, what do you think should be changed? I think you're doing it wrong. You should do one of this tier list per matchup. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. That's like a million. T Drogo says hello. I think Max is still the highest rated player. Okay, Drogo, what do you agree or disagree with? Alright. Like, the thing is, guys, this doesn't... So, there's 5 Protoss units in S tier. This doesn't mean Protoss is the best race. Terran units work together way better than any other race. So, even though Terran is 3 units in S tier, that doesn't mean, oh, Terran is the weakest one. I just feel that those 3 Terran units are way better than the other Terran units. Max says, I think Zealot Archon is S tier and Stalker is A tier. You still think Zealot Archon is S tier? Wait, are these Dropper Lords? No, they're not Dropper Lords. This is Overlord. Dropper Lords have different skin. Zealots used in every matchup? I mean, so are Marauders and Tanks and Lynx and Roaches. That's the thing, like, are Zerglings then also S tier? You guys don't think Stalkers are S unit? Okay, so let's see what Drogo says. Max says Stalkers is a bad unit in the main army. Just micro better. Stalkers no DPS for its cost. Yeah, well, it's about utility though. Try playing Protoss in mid game without Stalkers. See what happens. I would. Drogo says I would move a ton of units, 1 tier up, 1 tier down, but no units strike me as terribly out of place. Like, a lot of people in my chat thought... Okay, guys, listen. These tier lists are hard to do in StarCraft. I know they are. Like, there's no perfect solution. Like, you can always base it off of matchups. Like, matchups would be a lot easier. But then, this is like an overall thing, right? Like, I personally think Zerglings are a really good unit. But it's like... Are they as good as Marines? I don't think they are. But... Okay, Drogo and Max. A lot of people in my chat said that Mutas should be higher. Do you guys think Mutas should be anywhere except F tier? Nothing as good as Marine? But that's the thing. Marine is probably... Like, looking at these units, right? Marine is probably the best unit. In my opinion. I think S tier, Marine is the best unit. Per supply and micro-wise, you will get the most value. But that doesn't mean... That doesn't work like that in the game. Mutas are better than Banshees, aren't they? Okay, we'll do this. Okay, I'll do a couple of swaps. All right. I'll do a couple of swaps here. I'll do Stalker like this. I'll do Zealots here. I guess the point of Stalkers not being super good in the main army is true. What else would I move? I don't know if I would move anything else. I think maybe Void Ray in A. Because Void Ray is broken, or, you know, it's really good in PvZ and in PvT, but PvP has no use, really. Like, maybe you can go like this to balance it out. But other than that, I would probably keep it. The thing is, again, it depends on the matchup. You can also move the Widow Mines, right? You can move the Widow Mines to A tier. And you can move up Siege Tanks because they're used in all 3 matchups. But I do think that Widow Mines have higher impact. So, I don't know. Yeah, it also, you know, this is at the end of the day, it's just for fun. And there's no perfect list. Yeah, that's the thing. You can discuss this for days. Like, you can move units up and down. You know, you can... I think, for example, Max, Drogo, and I will have different point of views. Let's assume we were same rating. We're not, but let's assume we're same rating. We will have different tier lists based on what we struggle against in games. You know what I mean? Like, if I suck against Brewlords, and Max sucks against Lings, and Drogo sucks against Lurkers, we're gonna rate them differently. So, I think this is overall a pretty decent list for current meta. Of course, you can put a unit down or up. Also, like a Protoss, or sorry, not a Protoss, but I don't know, like a Zerg is gonna rate corruptors lower, right? Because they don't struggle with corruptors. It's ZVZ, right? So I think a lot of units can be moved up and down, but I think this is pretty much pretty much how I would do it. If I had to rate the workers, by the way, I would probably rate a probe, then SCV, then drone the highest. Or again, you can also rate SCV highest because it can repair. So